This meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the June 27, 2024 meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Wes Tripp, and I am chair of the committee. At this time, I'll recognize my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves and highlight their relevant experience. We'll start with Jordan and then work our way down.
Hi, my name is Jordan Ryland. Sorry, I'm a licensed architect here in Raleigh. I've been a resident for 15 years.
And again, my name is Wes Tripp. I'm chair of this committee. I'm a local attorney here in Raleigh.
Tracy Kunz, Raleigh resident since 1999, work in the building industry and live in one of the historic districts.
Hi, I'm Lauren Woodard. I'm an architect here in Raleigh, and I've lived here for a little over 10 years, now recently moved to the east side of Raleigh.
All right, I'll recognize staff to introduce themselves as well.
Hello, I'm Colette Canane. I have worked for the City of Raleigh for 6 years, and I have a master's degree in historic preservation.
Good evening. I am Erin Morton Pugh. I'm also a senior preservation planner here with the city. I have been working with the city for 4 years, and I also have a master's in historic preservation.
All right. We have the agenda before us. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have I've got the wrong agenda pulled up here. Give me just a second. Of course, now the internet wants to go slow. Here we go. All right. Before us next, we have approval of the minutes from the April 25 and May 2023 meetings. Is there any corrections or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Staff, how many minor works were approved in the last month?
We approved 7 this month.
Excellent. All right, so now we're ready to move on to hearings. Just as provide as a brief introduction, this committee is a quasi-judicial body governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. This committee is authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness, which is why you're all here. In hearing cases, the committee conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means this is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how the committee must make its decisions. These rules are different from some other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. The committee's decisions are constrained by the standard of review set forth in state law and the UDO and the facts presented at the hearing. The committee hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The committee must base its decisions upon competent material and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and the standard, not personal preference or opinion. Participation is limited. This meeting is open to the public and everyone is welcome to watch. Parties have a right to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standard. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts and not opinions. For certain topics, the committee needs to hear testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. We'll now conduct the evidentiary hearings on today's agenda. And I will note that we only have 4 out of the 5 commissioners here, so any decision will need the vote of 3 commissioners to pass. If it doesn't get 3, then it's technically, how does that, what happens then?
It's not approved.
Not approved. Okay, so you need 3. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So the first matter on today's agenda is COA 15-2024, 533 Northeast Street. I'll recognize staff for their presentation, and while staff is making their presentation, the applicant, please come forward.
Would you like to swear us both in first? Or?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide today on the matters on today's agenda is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
All right, as you mentioned, this is case 15-2024 for 533 Northeast Street, which is in the Oakwood Historic Overlay District, a general HOD. The request is to construct a retaining wall, rebuild and alter the front steps, and install handrails. You can see the property here is just close to the corner of North Boundary and Northeast, just to the south of the park known as Oakwood Commons. This is a view of the house from the street. And all of our photos focus on the front today, since that's the primary area of your request. So this is a view from kind of standing in front of that Oakwood Commons, looking south back towards the house. A closer view at the current front steps and the area of the proposed retaining wall. And then again, looking back towards the house from the south. And a closer view, and a detailed view of the current steps. The abbreviated summary of staff concerns is a lack of supporting evidence for concrete or stone cap on steps, and evidence that those are congruous with the character of the historic district, and then typical material details and specifications that are usually provided as conditions.
All right, the applicant is present. Please introduce yourselves for the record.
I'm Pat Hyde, and this is Mark Hyde.
And you can move the mic closer. It's able to be moved.
I'm Pat Hyde.
And Mark Hyde.
All right. I'll go ahead and have you both raise your right hands. I'll swear you in before you begin your presentation. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. You may proceed.
So, what do we present? I thought like you have the packet.
Right. So you can make any presentation you want. If you don't have anything to say, you just want to rely on what's in the information packet, we can move on and then just ask you any questions if there are. But if you have nothing else to say, then you don't have to say anything.
I think everything is in the packet.
Okay.
Right? And I can only answer what's pretty much in there right now.
Sure. All right. Give me just a second. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the case? All right. Hearing none, we'll proceed with committee questions from the table.
Question for staff. There are a number of examples presented that of a cap. Were any of those via COA?
They were not. And based on our research, several of them have occurred in the last few years. So depending on the result of this meeting is how we will proceed with a violation notice.
Okay. The existing condition includes a cap. Well, I don't know if, sorry, I'd strike that.
Any additional questions from the committee for the applicant?
Question for the applicant. Are you working with someone who can draw you a dimensioned plan, like a contractor or designer?
Yes. She didn't provide it before, but I've been in touch with, since I got the report, I've been in touch with her and showed her the potential conditions that you list in like 2A and B, which would be her thing. And then, of course, with the railing, that's someone else. That's a different contractor. But I think she can give us the 2A and B that she hasn't done so far.
Okay. And it was a little unclear to me. Are you replacing the entire porch railing with the sort of iron that you plan to do for the steps, or?
Just a handrail going up the steps,
I see.
not replacing the railing on the porch.
Okay.
Any additional questions, Jordan?
I assume that what you have in mind is essentially replacing like for like you have brick wall with cap at the top, so you're just trying to go back with what's there.
Pretty much, and if it definitely looks like the concern with the bluestone cap is, substantial concern, so we could eliminate that for
Okay.
sure. That's not necessary.
Okay.
It was desirable, and
Sure.
we did see examples, so we thought it might be okay, but we didn't know.
Okay.
Right.
I don't have any other questions.
And Jordan, just to clarify, the cheek walls will largely be the same, but they will have a stepped. There will be 2 levels. So that will be the difference.
Oh, I didn't make that clear, right?
I see from your drawing that there's a step.
It'd be tiered.
And would both tiers have the cap? It looks like they
Yes,
do.
and it
Okay.
could be current, like concrete as it is now.
I see.
If that's what
Okay.
we need to do.
Any additional questions from the table?
Sorry. The retaining wall is what's going to be the natural stone
We would like natural stone.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Actually, no further questions this time.
Tracy?
And I guess the other concern is the caps, the columns, and so, that also could be modified. Not done.
Any questions, Lauren?
No, I'm good.
Any further questions from the committee? All right, hearing none, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Y'all can have a seat. Thank you very much. We'll proceed with committee discussion.
Could we not include the first potential condition based on the evidentiary hearing?
You are free to modify and alter or add those as you would like.
I think I need to address that too a little bit, because that first one, are you talking about the bluestone or concrete cap?
Right.
So that would actually be an amendment to the application as well. So if you were to approve this application the way it is, it currently says that. If it's going to be removed, I would recommend having the applicant come up and make sure that that's on the record, if that's what's happening.
Probably just easier to leave it in as a condition.
Sure.
Yeah.
I only asked because they said they would be amenable to removing it, so I didn't know if.
Yeah. If I would just, for the record, and make sure there's no questions afterwards. So if they're removing it, great, you can ask them, and they can amend their application to do that right here, verbally on the record. It's up to you.
Okay, well, just include the condition.
Just leave it in.
Do you want me to do this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Does anyone else have
I
anything?
don't think there's any discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I move that based on the evidence presented and the testimony heard in the hearing, that the application be approved, including the following conditions. One, that the front step not have a bluestone or concrete cap. Two, that the following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to issuance of the blue placard. A, construction details and brick specification for the front steps. B, dimensioned elevation drawing for the retaining wall. 3, that the following be provided to and accepted by staff prior to installation or instruction. A, installation location and construction details, including section for the railing. B, brick paint color, if any, and if not, matching the current foundation paint color.
All right, motion's been made to approve the application subject to the stated conditions. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, the application's been approved. The decision will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. Thank you very much. All right, next application is COA 53-2024. This is 601 Elm Street. Go ahead and recognize staff for their presentation.
Okay, as you mentioned, this is case COA 53-2024 for 601 Elm Street. It is in the Oakwood Historic Overlay District, a general HOD. The nature of the request is to construct a 1.5-story accessory structure, install walkway, and install screen plantings. You can see on the map here, the property in question is at the corner of Elm and Euclid. And you can see from that intersection a view of the house, and we'll take you on a tour around it. This is a direct view from Elm Street of the front of the house. A view from Euclid looking towards the rear yard. And again, on Euclid towards the end of the existing curb cut, looking into the rear yard in the proposed location. A detail of that current proposed location. And again, with the adjacent house in view there. And this is a view back on Elm Street looking down the north side yard towards the area of the proposed addition. A summary of staff concerns. Built area and built mass comparisons were not provided for adjacent properties. The height in general is a concern, especially as viewed towards the structure immediately behind, adjacent to the proposed site. And then generally, additional material details and specifications were not provided that are typically provided through conditions. And the applicant does have a presentation when they're ready.
All right, we'll go ahead and recognize the applicant for their presentation. Yes, however you want to do that, Molly.
Thank you. Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group, here on behalf of the applicant, 213 North Bloodworth, LLC. I have with me today Brooke Tate from Maurer Architecture, who will introduce her qualifications. I'll ask that she be admitted as an expert witness. I also have here my husband and the applicant, Michael Stewart, owner of the LLC. And Brooke, if you could introduce your experience, qualifications, in particular with respect to architecture, design, and historic preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Good evening. I'm Brooke Tate, Maurer Architecture. I'm a registered architect. I've worked in historic preservation type of projects for 20-something years, and I'm happy to be here and hopefully helping these folks build a accessory dwelling unit.
As Mr. Stewart is not an expert witness, but the owner, we can go ahead and get them sworn in.
Come forward, Mr. Stewart. Yeah, that's fine. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir. All right, thank you. And yes, we can go ahead and swear you in as well. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Excellent, thank you.
Perfect. And I'd like to tender Ms. Tate as an expert witness in architecture, design, and historic preservation.
Without objection, so moved.
Thank you. I'd also like to request that our application materials and slide presentation, with the exception of slide 2, be admitted to the record.
Without objection, so moved.
There was an error on slide 2. I did bring printouts of that full slide presentation. Did they just go to you? One moment, make sure. See a couple here. And these do not include that slide. Okay. While those are going around, I'll keep it brief today. I really just want to focus on the 3 staff concerns that we saw in the report that are not in the section that can easily be handled through conditions. That first staff concern was related to the built mass percentages. And so we do have those today. And I also have handouts on this point. Like I said, I don't want to go to the slides. One moment. We're going to skip that one. So I have 2 versions of this, and before handing them out, I'll look at this map to explain why we did what we did. So these are 3 blocks, and you can see the parcel in question is outlined in red. These 3 blocks have wildly different shapes to them, and that results in wildly different lots on those blocks. So there's kind of no world in which the average built mass percentages are going to be the same between these blocks. This is a hallmark of Oakwood. We'll see that in the special character essay as well. So for that reason, we do have a handout for you, and I will ask Ms. Tate to describe the calculations that she did. We did 2 handouts, one showing that those calculations for going in kind of all directions from the site, and then another focused only on the block that it's on, since those properties are the ones that face kind of the same geometric restrictions. So, Ms. Tate, could you please describe how you did these calculations?
Sure. The built mass calculations provided were given using the tax records available on IMAPs and calculating open porches, heated area, everything that's a mass on the site versus the acreage listed on the tax parcel.
Thank you. So what you have in your hands, or will have in your hands, these are Ms. Tate's calculations. And what I'm about to hand out is a version that puts those calculations kind of in a list form, so you can see in order of built mass percentages how the lots compare. So this last handout that's going around, this handout is focused on the version of the calculations that is limited to this city block. Give you a minute to look at that. So what you can see, particularly in the list form, as you see, there are two versions of the list. At the top of the page, that list includes all the structures on the block, with those grayed out if they're not contributing structures. And those are fairly evenly distributed throughout that list, based only on contributing structures. So there, you can see where this proposal falls in the property, and then the lines that are sort of that light pink color, that's designed to show which of these are within about 10% of the proposal that's here today. So generally it falls within the range that you see on the block, mix of contributing and non-contributing structures in that math. So I believe that fully addresses that first concern about not having these calculations, so you can see how this does fit in. And to kind of revisit that point about the blocks in Oakwood, this is from the Oakwood Special Character Essay in the design guidelines. And what you see is that the blocks are of varying sizes and shapes. So some are square, some are rectangular. It leads to a great diversity from the air, not necessarily from the street view, right? So that's from the street, all of these blocks look fairly similar, but from the air, they're going to look wildly different. These are the three structures on the same block as this site that are all contributing structures and all have greater, and in some cases much greater, built mass percentages on those blocks. The next staff concern, the next two related to height questions, but the first one was somewhat more narrow, focusing on the relationship of the height of the proposed structure, primarily to that adjacent structure, as you heard from staff earlier. In the staff report, it does note that although there are examples of this situation provided in the application materials, that many of these were approved under a previous version of the design guidelines. So what you see on your screen is a paragraph from the current version of the design guidelines, and the sentence that's underlined is the relevant change that has happened that actually talks about height. Since that time, this was adopted in 2017, that one sentence. And that one change is specific to having the accessory structure be deferential to the principal building. So not really addressing those neighboring buildings or making any change as far as that relationship is concerned. Overall, looking at kind of the next concern, which is sort of height generally, you saw a lot of examples in the application materials of random development, and that's captured, again, in that special character essay, that there is a pattern of, quote, random development. It's a hallmark. There's, even within small areas of the district, you have a wide diversity. And although this does focus primarily on primary structures, there isn't a similar discussion of accessory structures. So this is kind of what we have to go on. So the general look, as the special character essay notes, is one of height diversity, buildings close together, sometimes very close together. This one I point out quickly because it's relevant partly because, although again we're back in primary structure land, but that new house on the corner to the right is a 3-story structure. It's about 12 years old, and it is next to a contributing 1-story structure next door. And the key to that is that house on the corner is here in the design guidelines at the bottom of the page, noted as a compatible building. So height diversity in Oakwood, not a big concern. And in fact, in this case, what you see, so at the top of your screen, this is a rendering of, or massing study, somewhere in between, of how that new structure would fit into the existing structures on the block. And so really creating that rhythm, creating that consistent street wall that the character essay mentions, right? So that is very relevant to the character of Oakwood. And in this case, you saw that very diverse up and down height throughout Oakwood. This example is more like the picture at the bottom, and that is a block of East Street, which shows actually sort of astoundingly consistent character for Oakwood, right? So generally very similar heights, and that's kind of the character that you start to see here with this proposed structure. This is a historic example from Oakwood. This is a couple blocks away. Here you see the 2-story 1940 garage at 425 North Bloodworth, and you see the note that these eaves align with those of the main house. So unfortunately, with leaves on the trees. It is not possible today to get a good shot showing all three things at once. But if we know that let's see if I can circle that. So the garage is back here, and those eaves are aligning with the house. So here we can compare the house with the eaves that align with the garage to the house next door. So again, down to that one-story structure that's right next to that two-story historic garage. That's just a better view of the neighboring structure. So that's it. What we've seen in Oakwood, although in the special character essay, height itself, not a lot to say about it, and certainly not within, a couple of feet. But what we do see is important is that cohesive whole that gets established through repetition, consistent rhythm along the continuous streetscape, and we think that is what's proposed here today. This is one of those contributing structures on the block that we saw earlier. This is right at the other end of Euclid. This is at Euclid and East Street. And what we notice here, this particular parcel actually has the highest built mass percentage on the block, but also its garage. And the thing we notice about its garage is how prominent that is, kind of sticking out. This is not the situation that we have. The proposed garage, the story-and-a-half garage, is set back further than the house in both directions on the corner lot. It's behind the main structure. It is shorter than the main structure. It is a smaller footprint, smaller size and scale overall. So definitely hitting that standard of being deferential to the main structure on the lot as well. Our whole team is ready to answer your questions. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who would like to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions.
Do I have questions? I don't think I have questions, actually.
Question for staff. Do we have any, maybe precedent's not the word that I'm looking for, about built area to open space increase?
There is a guideline, but it is not substantially increasing from the original. There is not a specific number, and in previous applications, we have considered original to be the period of significance of the district, so that would be the built area at around 1940 or earlier, which can be difficult to estimate. Yeah.
And Molly, you're welcome to provide any comment.
I'll also just say, because there was a previous garage there, that points out that it's 188 square feet net increase in built area, so it's rather small in the grand scheme.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Any other questions from the committee? Tracy? Lauren? Jordan? All right, we'll go ahead and close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and proceed with committee discussion. I don't have any concerns. I think the applicant did a good job of addressing the height and showing that Oakwood has a lot of varied height next to each other. So I don't have any concerns with the application as presented.
I do have concern, mainly being the relationship of the footprint of this accessory dwelling to the primary residence and also to its adjacent residence. I'm searching for my guideline. Let's see. There are, I think, two I just want to note. Locate and orient new garages and accessory buildings in locations comparable with the historic relationship of garages and accessory buildings to the main structure and the site in the district. That's 1.6.6 and 1.6. 4.11, it is not appropriate to introduce a new garage or accessory building if doing so will detract from the overall district character of the principal building and the site and require removal of significant building element site features such as mature tree. For me, I think the thing that is sticking me a little bit is the proximity of the front facade to the front facade of the primary structure and to its secondary one. When we see these garages, typically they do have they live beyond the sort of halfway mark of that facade and do have sort of a presence that lives farther back from the facade of the house, even if it is a side facade. That shows up in the examples that you've given in your photographs. And specifically also in the rendering where we see them all lined up together because of its height. My concern is that it starts to be a mass that presents, even though it has garage doors on the front, that does tell us it's a garage. It starts to presume the presence of a primary structure in some ways. I think in an ideal world, even though the numbers are sort of checking out on built mass, for me, relationship and location doesn't feel deferential. That'd be my comment.
Yeah, but maybe for different reasons, it doesn't feel deferential to me. I mean, I think the height is what's the word I'm looking for? In the letter, if not the spirit.
Tall?
You're
talking about deferential to the primary structure or
correct,
deferential
to the primary structure.
Okay.
To the primary structure. I mean, you can only do so much about the adjacent primary structure, and that's not
Right.
really what the guidelines are referring to. I'm in my interpretation of it, it's not primary structures, it's just the one primary structure.
Sure.
I am not convinced that the proposed structure is deferential to the primary structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's very close in height. It also, just based on maybe not the rendering, but the section provided seems to sit a little bit higher than the primary structure as far as the grade. I think it's sited on top of what was a previous secondary structure, so maybe I don't really take issue with that. It's more about the scale of it as compared to the primary structure.
Yeah, I think it is where it should be.
Should, and could be.
Yeah, I think its location is correct. It's just that it's sort of pushing the boundaries of appropriate bigness.
Yeah, and I think I struggle with some of the evidence presented, like, the textual change of 1.6 is pretty cut and dry, deferential to the principal building in siding size and scale. The special character essay of Oakwood, larger two-story homes are flanked by one-story cottages. I think the example of, was it 530 Northeast Street, sort of yellow house on the corner with the garage that's seemingly proud of the facade of the main house. But the main house is 1.5 stories and the garage is 1 story. I mean, it seems to be a fair bit lower than the primary structure. I mean, the sort of varying heights of the primary structures presented in the evidence are compelling for primary structures. but maybe not so much for sheds or garages. So I'm just, even if I ignore its relationship to the house next to it, that's not really related. I struggle with its relationship to the house that it shares a lot with.
Any other comments from the committee? All right, hearing none, I'm going to reopen the evidentiary portion of the hearing and allow the applicant an opportunity to respond to the discussion that she's heard from the table.
Thank you, appreciate that. So in your materials, there are several different examples of garages that are similarly related to the primary structure, particularly with respect to height. And when we talk about, what is differential, let me actually get to that piece here. There is siting, in this case, behind the primary structure, set back significantly further in both directions. That is one of the, here we go. Now I'm figuring out how to actually put it back in I think it's covered up on my screen, so I can't. Oh, up here. Okay, thank you. Oh. Okay, we'll get there. Right, so as far as being differential, one, like I said, there are many examples that were provided. Oh, here we go. Here's the language. So as far as being differential to that primary structure, siting, I think is, from our understanding, there's no hard line to that, but it is, like I said, significantly behind the house in both directions. As far as overall size, unless, if there are particular questions about the size, as far as the square footage or the footprint, we have a state here who can address how those two things compare, but clearly very significantly smaller than that primary structure. And as far as overall scale, all of those things play in. Although the height is relatively closer than those other dimensions, it is still below. So in every respect, it is smaller and more deferential, right? So it is, by comparison, not something that is overwhelming. The main house is not, making kind of a second main house or even something that is greater in this case. So certainly intent to stay very close to what was historically there. If you'd like to hear more about those specific square footage comparisons, we can ask Ms. Tate as well.
And I would also just like to point out, there were two precedent examples provided on page 15 of the precedent photos. Number 13 and then number 14, 323 Pace and 703 Bloodworth, both show accessory buildings that are either taller or the same height as the existing house. One of them is definitely taller.
Could you show that on the screen? I'm having a hard time finding it on my. Oh, okay.
You may have some of that.
For the record, can we confirm if we're getting, this is a new exhibit?
This was a part of the application.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
We had some extra slides.
Yeah, both of these are, it's page 16 and 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
These aren't the garages. No, let's just refer them to the application.
And it was numbers 13 and 14.
Oh, these two? No. Yes. Oh, okay.
There's the application.
I'm very familiar with 15.
But then he was
Anything else from the applicant?
Unless,
It's
are we-
still, oh, yeah. I mean,
Is it, I think what I heard was just that concern about the being differential to the main structure. Was there something else that we did not address?
That seemed to be the main concern from the table. But we can have, if there's any questions from the committee, that's appropriate now as well.
Is the primary structure 2 stories, 1.5 stories?
It's a 1.5 story with a 10.5, 11-foot ceiling height,
Okay, so
hipped roof.
I guess, can you help me square that circle? If the primary structure is 1.5 stories and the accessory structure is 1.5 stories, can you tell me how you consider that to be differential?
So we kept it a little bit over a foot under the building height. It is set back from the street and set back from the house and set away from the existing house as much as possible. We have made the first floor as low of a ceiling as possible at 8 feet and put in, a half story above to make it, to be able to function as usable space in this lot. So to me, deferential is just subservient to the existing house. I don't know that it matters if it's an inch or 5 feet, or it's definitely the same language in that it slopes away from the street as a hip on the main roof, like the main house. And so its peak happens further back than its facade. And in those ways, I feel it's deferential.
I'll just add to that although height is the closest of the many dimensions of being deferential, all of the others are much, much different from the main structure and much, much smaller in all of those other respects. And so that's only one, not really challenging the building, and certainly by no means dominant on the site.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, hearing none, we'll reclose the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Bring the matter back to the table with committee discussion. I agree with the applicant that the proposed structure is deferential to the primary structure. Yes, they're both a story and a half, but it is shorter by about a little over a foot, and it's smaller square feet. And as the applicant said, set back from the property. And I'm concerned that if the committee decides that this proposed structure is not deferential, when Catherine's drawing up the order, I don't know how she's going to be able to say that it's not deferential. She'd be twisting the English language to try to figure out a way to say that. So I think it is deferential. It's almost as tall as the existing house, but it's shorter, and it has a smaller footprint than the existing house. So those are my thoughts.
Go ahead, Tracy. Lauren?
I also feel like from the side, from Euclid Street, it is set back quite far enough that it feels deferential. It's not like on the same setback as the house.
I don't think I've necessarily been convinced that it is, just from, if we look at it in a microcosm here, it is set back from that building, but just in seeing the whole presentation, it's just my opinion that it is pushing up against what would be considered deferential. But I will say that it's on the edge, and I'm feeling like I'm torn. Mostly because I feel like I'm also thinking about the district. I'm thinking about the fact that if we start infilling these, the applicant has an unusual condition that they're on a corner. So you are able to see it from two views, not just the front of the house, where if we were just looking at this lined up house, and your guy was at the back of that lot, this wouldn't be a discussion. That's a perfect place for it to be. It would be in many ways differential, but it's because we're seeing it from the long side and we have to account for that, that it is so presentful in my mind, and that's my concern. Can I have a
Right.
question for staff? The 525 Watauga, this one is probably the closest example you have to what you do have, and it appears to be a rendering. Was that approved by COA recently?
It was very recently,
Okay.
in the last year, and has.
In construction now.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Well,
A difference in that application is that the primary structure and the cul-de-sac are all new construction.
I see.
That would be the key difference.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, it's not just the height. The special character essay references small narrow lots. This isn't really one of those. Like you said, it's a corner lot, so there's like a different relationship between the house and the garage by necessity. I think some of the examples, I would say many of them, where the accessory structure is taller or nearly as tall or as tall as the primary structure, have the benefit of being sited behind the house with reference to the street, being lot being bounded by houses on either side. Maybe the yellow house, 425 North Bloodworth, might be another exception to that rule, and I know that is also a pretty unique house. I'm really struck by the renderings actually provided on page 18 and 19 of the PDF. I mean, it really does sort of read as another house in a row of three houses in those renderings. I think, as far as the fenestration and, expression of the garage doors and the windows above, I mean, it does as much as it can to be read as a garage. Maybe that's enough, but I do see three similarly street-facing or street-presenting houses, although one of them is not a house. So I don't think I can quite get there.
Any other discussion from the committee? All right, I'm going to move that the application be deferred to the August meeting of the COA committee. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So, application's been deferred to August.
What's the date? August?
22nd.
If we haven't missed the window, love to hear some guidance on requested changes. What?
I will. So I will state. Ideally, the next time we meet, there'll be 5 commissioners, and there's 4. You probably could have guessed that the vote would have been 2-2 today. So there's that. I think some of the concern among the commissioners are height of the structure. I think that's probably the main concern among the concerns that were expressed was the height of the structure. And if anyone else wants to add anything to that, I think feel free.
One thing I would love to see is a site plan that also includes the house next door, just in terms of setbacks and everything, the house on Euclid. I think that could be helpful to envision all the setbacks and.
I have a similar request. I think that for this proposal, it would be a much stronger case if we had footprint comparisons of ADUs with their houses, so it wouldn't just be impressions of what that is based on what you've presented, which I do think you guys did a good job with your application, just getting that little bit of extra footprint information of the ADU versus primary structure, so we can see that figure ground comparison really would be very helpful.
Yeah. So we do have in the application a tree protection plan that shows that neighboring structure. So it is there.
I can't legally put it on our site plan, but it's on the tree protection.
Right. And that is something we've been struggling with, is that we're not allowed to present evidence that's not directly relevant to one of the standards, and the standard talks about deference to the primary structure, but we do have that tree plan showing that relationship.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next application, COA 54-2024-209 Linden Avenue. I'll recognize staff for their presentation, and while staff is presenting, the applicant can come forward.
No worries, thank you. All right, this is case COA 54-2024. This is for 209 Linden Avenue in the Oakwood Historic District. The request is to alter the existing roof form to install a rear dormer addition and skylights and construct rear steps. This is a photo of the house as it exists from Linden Avenue. The applicant has been working through various COA applications with staff to rehab this house. So some of these photos are going to show ongoing work occurring that's not being requested in the current work request, but has received COA approval. This is a view looking up, down Linden Avenue toward downtown. So that would be the north side of the house and the south side of the house. Looking back towards the street, and you can see the attic vents that are part of the request to be altered. In the rear, where we have this sort of double A-frame situation and a cricket in the middle, and this is the area where that dormer is proposed to be installed to wrap that existing interior side of all of three of those gables. A view toward the rear property lines, you can see how far this is located from that. The corner board of the house is just visible on the left. And a look down that north property line. And a view of the front yard area where the retaining wall is proposed to be replaced. Staff concerns were evidence to support the removal of an original building feature and replaced with glass, and some rear deck specifications, including the solid PVC material and picture frame edging details proposed. And the applicant has some additional information I'll pass out to you now. No actual presentation, but here for questions.
Did you want to go ahead and pass out that additional? Okay. Let me go ahead and have you introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Ben Bingham. I'm the property owner at 209 Linden. So I'm here to talk through it.
Great. Before we begin, we'll go ahead and swear you in. If you just raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Do you have anything to add, or you just want to go ahead and answer questions?
I can walk through this report if you want me to.
Sure, that's fine.
So yeah, basically jump into it. proposing to add the dormers, and in part of that, I've got some attic vents that I had to figure out what to do with. My proposition is to turn those into round windows in the gables. The staff had some concerns that there was not evidence of previously changing attic vents to windows. I wasn't able to find any specific COAs referencing that change, but I did a walk around the neighborhood and found some examples of gable windows. Some of those looked to appear to be in converted attics. And then I also found some round window examples. So starting at 411 Oakwood, you'll see a converted attic there. It's not clear if those windows were originally vents or not. And there's 2 round gable windows at 323 East Lane Street and 327 East Jones. And then there's a couple more examples of gabled windows at 415 Northeast and 414 Northeast. The second staff concern was evidence to support the use of PVC decking, and a picture frame edging detail was not provided. Most of the approved COAs that I could find that were adding decks to a property did not indicate decking orientation. So I did not find any evidence that supported a picture frame deck. It certainly, I think, is the preferred method just because the way the deck is wrapping around 2 exterior walls there. But if that needed to be a condition, I would welcome that. And then I did find several examples of composite decking, and I referenced those COAs there. A couple additional details that staff requested was the gutter and downspout details. I show the details there, but the gutters will just wrap that U on the fascia, and the downspouts will come down onto that small roof and discharge into the gutters that were approved in the previous minor work COA. And as far as foundation or landscaping plantings, I currently don't have anything proposed, so any changes I make would be done so in a future COA. That's all I got.
All right. Any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Seeing none, we'll proceed with committee questions.
The attic glazing, the circular windows you're proposing, will they just be as they are in the drawing, like a porthole, no mullions?
That's currently the plan. I did notice on my walkabout that most windows had stiles, so if that was something that was requested to match the existing 2/2s, I'd be happy to do that.
I don't have any.
Any additional questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. You can have a seat. Thank you very much. We'll proceed with committee discussion. I don't have anything.
No, me neither. I'm good.
You want to make the motion, Jordan?
No, not really.
Okay. Anyone else?
I will.
Okay. I mean, I was about to.
Okay. I move that, based on the congruity analysis, staff concerns, and previous similar applications, following conditions,
Or that the application be approved.
that the application be approved, including the following conditions. 1, that the tree protection plan be implemented and remain in place for the duration of the construction phase. 2, that the rear landing and steps material either be all wood or composite wood and not have a picture frame edge. 3, that the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to installation or construction. A, revised decking specifications. B, gutter/downspout locations and specifications, if any. C, a site planting plan, if anything other than grass.
Motion's been made to approve the application subject to the stated conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor
I would
say
like
aye.
to
Yeah, do
offer
we-
a potential clarification here.
Yeah.
Before we take a vote. So the gutter and downspout specifications and locations have been provided in the new material, so we can strike that condition. And I also noticed the examples provided from the district of the round windows had mutton patterns, that sort of single cross. Is that something that you had intended to add? That was sort of a shallow agree, not formal amendment of the application.
Do we want to have some discussion about the motion, offer some friendly amendments? I don't know if they're big enough to warrant muntins. I don't know. The examples offered seem actually quite large, but it could be a trick of the eye.
Yeah.
I guess, if we want to be consistent with the others in the district, we should
Yeah.
probably
I agree with that.
add that as a potential condition. Where I'm seeing three head nods.
Just, if that's something you want to add, let's make that a placard condition, because that's more of a design change than just additional specifications.
Okay.
Sure, come on up to the microphone.
Could we do that on the street-facing ones and not on the rear ones, and just do portholes on the rear ones, or would that? I had the same concern about the size, just from
Yeah.
the back two rooms will be bedrooms, so I just wanted to.
Because here's a question for you. I see that in your application, you intended for them to be glazed in place. So you're not going to purchase like a round window. You just intend to put
Yeah,
a
they're
piece of glass
not, they're
in the
not
front?
perfectly round.
I see.
So, planning on working with a historical preservationist guy that's local. He lives in Five Points. But his current recommendation was to glaze in place instead of trying to route out that hole to be round and then putting a round window in was his.
Interesting.
I feel like we're doing a little too much designing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if we do ask for them, they need to be everywhere.
Yeah. Give it to me. You look like you.
Ooh, me?
Mhm.
Oh, no. So what do you want to do with this?
My idea would just keep them as a porthole window, just because they're so small that I feel like if I add anything else, it'll take away a little bit more from the natural light in them. Yeah, they do. But I'm not opposed if.
Speaking to the microphone. Sorry.
I'm just looking at the pictures that you provided, which are very helpful. And yeah, I would be inclined to agree that these do look like they are much larger than the ones that you have.
327 East Jones Street, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I wonder if they could look worse with dividers in them. Just,
I don't know if it's proper to say, like, for me to comment on how, the facade composition feels, dare I say, less congruous without all of the without all the windows having sort of matching fenestration patterns as they line up above each other. And maybe not the one that's over the door, but in the back, but certainly, the ones on the other 3 proposed ones line up right over a window that's what do they call that, a 2/2. So it feels appropriate for the, and I will say that, the 323 East Lane Street, the window, like the width of that window roughly aligns with the width of the window below it. And we're kind of in a similar spot here with the proposed facade, so.
I'd offer just as some additional information. I'm not sure when all of these potential conversions happen, but at least a couple of them, and I think the Lane Street and Jones Street examples in particular, those conversions happened within the period of significance, around the 1910s potentially, depending on some of the research that we have in-house. I don't know if it was, a full window replacement rather than how the window got inserted, but those are potentially within the period of significance and therefore, early conversion considered congruous, relevant evidence and examples. I know that the first page at 411 Oakwood is an alteration. I think, 70s, 80s. There's a house next door where you can see what the attic vent looked like prior to that. But attic conversions to make more occupiable space, there are some historic documentation examples of that happening within the period of significance.
Sure.
I'm not sure how that helps, but just a little context.
Well, I think it helped me because now I'm looking at 411 Oakwood, the one on the front page, and that's like a very small, seemingly double or single hung. I don't think it takes away anything from this. The size doesn't take away from the pattern that it creates with the other windows that it shares a facade with. So I think that puts me pretty firmly in favor of the Muntins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think looking at 323 East Lane Street, I don't believe that, the proportion, it might be a proportion thing, but it's not an enormous window either. I think I would err towards the Muntins for sure.
You want to
So-
restate your motion?
Well, it's a design change, so
Is this a?
so I think we might have to defer it.
Is
that true? Is this something-
placard?
You don't have, so I can probably answer this too. You don't have to defer it just because there's a design change. I mean,
Okay.
if it's something that's minor that you can specify clearly in a condition, you can do that. If the applicant wants to formally amend their application on the record to do it, you could do it that way too.
Okay.
We would need those specific language. If it's something that you can't specify specifically in a way that somebody else could pick it up and read it and it be enforceable, and you need to have some more time to make, if it's of such an extent that the changes require more, for them to come back with something additional, then you would be. But just, and I'm not an architect, so I don't really know that
Sure.
I think I know what I can understand how this would read, but.
Yeah, and we typically, as staff, would approve a 5/8 inch or 7/8 inch putty profile for any window muntin. So if you were to just specify the muntin pattern you're looking for with that profile information, we could very easily handle that.
So let me sort of freestyle here, and
I'll type while you're freestyling.
Okay.
And we can
okay. So
work on it.
I want to amend potential condition 3B and strike it from the record. Is that possible? Is that something we can do? That's about the gutter downspouts and specifications and locations.
Yeah, let's do, so that's one thing, and the other thing is you're talking about adding it. Let's do them both, and then we can ask if that can be a friendly amendment as a package.
So I want to strike potential condition 3B, and I want to add condition 4, that the round gable windows have either a 5/8 inch or 7/8 inch putty profile in a 2/2 pattern consistent with the nearest adjacent window on the facade.
Can we get a little more specificity on that nearest adjacent
I would
window?
say a cross muntin pattern to match examples provided.
A 5/8 inch or 7/8 inch putty profile in a cross muntin pattern to match examples provided.
It's not elegant, but I know what you mean.
So
and
can
it's
we
on the
do
record.
examples provided for 3? Can we give an address so we can maybe,
At-
I'm thinking of, I know this group might know, but in 5 years, somebody picks it up, they need to know what we were talking about.
Sure. Do you want me to just read the whole thing straight through?
No, I'll read it back to you. I've been
Okay.
typing, but.
Examples provided at 323 East Lane Street and 327 East Jones Street.
Okay, I'm going to read it back, and then I would let staff and probably even the applicant give some feedback on whether or not this is clear for enforcement, and there's no questions. So this would be a new condition 4, and it would be that the round gable windows must have either a 5/8 inch or 7/8 inch putty profile in a 2/2 pattern consistent with the cross muntin pattern to match examples provided at 323 East Lane Street and 327 East Jones Street.
Can I read a condition that I think would be clearer
Yeah.
in terms of language?
Yep, go ahead.
I've been working over here too. So I'd say that the round gable windows must have a 5/8 inch or 7/8 inch putty profile muntin in a cross pattern similar to examples provided at 323 East Lane Street and 327 East Jones Street.
Works for me.
All right. Jordan, that was your motion, so we'll just consider it an amended motion. Is there a second on the motion as amended?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, the application's been approved. Decision will be official at next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed after issuance of the blue placard.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll note that COA 6/2024 803 Glenwood Avenue is not being heard. It's been deferred. That'll be heard next month, I believe. Any other business to come before the committee?
Will you state that, what's the date that it's being deferred to, just so we don't have to renotice it?
So it was deferred to the July meeting, July 25th. However, the applicants have requested that they not return till the August 22nd. They were not able to prepare the new materials by the deadline. So they needed additional time.
All right. Any other business to come before the committee?
So that's the date, August 22nd.
Hearing none, committee is adjourned.